Get in. We're going to a hippie gathering. All right. Typical New Orleans street stuff. And I was in front of Jackson Square, standing in front of Caldy's coffee shop. Carload of fresh off the boat Russians. Old Chevy Caprice 4-door. Painted navy blue with house paint with red tribal graffitied. Get in. We're going to a hippie gathering. All right. So I jump in this car and spend a week with these people.
I got to stay with Hoimaha and Josie for the last couple of evenings. It's been really nice to sleep on their couch. I've been continuing the work of labor and the expression of worth. It's just great to be here on this side of the state. There's so much moisture on the ground. Approaching summertime in eastern Oklahoma. The Blues Hall of Fame had some business in Renniesville with Selby and these folks. And I did these interviews with a couple of interviews this morning with Hoimaha, and I wanted to share those with you because this guy's got a really good work going on along the lines of labor and the expression of worth. Hoimaha has a practice going on, and it's a deep practice. It's one that he's been developing his entire life. So as I've stated before on my channel, these are the type of people that I'm interested in talking with, in being around, in sharing energy with, having exchanges. So here's these interviews I did with Hoimaha. I'm here this morning with Hoimaha here, and this is Bella, right?
Yeah, this is Bella.
Hoimaha here is connected with the Oklahoma Blues Hall of Fame, located in Renniesville, Oklahoma, right? I had some good music times, really connected with the, just playing. I had my fiddle and mandolin and guitar, and Hoimaha was
beautiful time.
And Hoimaha, he's got a developed practice. I mean, he's working on many levels. You're a blacksmith. Right,
metallurgy.
You've as far as labor and the expression of worth, Hoimaha has developed himself in the invisible realm and the physical realm, and I just love spending time with this guy. And he's there's a story that I don't think could come out just like in one interview. I don't think that could happen. But there's so much there's a lot of wisdom to be gained. Gutter street punk thing. If there's this story that you were telling me about this evolution that you've made through life, these choices you made as a young person to live in certain ways that were informative. Is that a good starting place?
I left home at a young age, not because I didn't love my parents. I grew up listening to their stories about being hippies and the travels they had, and I spent the first few of my years in the back of a Kenworth cab over, when my parents were truck driving. And so I kind of inherently had that traveling bug in my system already. We moved around a lot as I was a child, so I never went to one school for more than 2 years. I think the longest I went to one school was 2.5 years. And even as an adult, I still traveled and moved around a lot. But I was kind of a preppy punk rock type guy, I guess, high school stoner type kid. But I dressed nice, And then I started traveling full time. Graduated high school early, and instead of going to college, I ended up backpacking the universe.
And backpacking the universe.
Backpacking the universe.
Right.
Through trials and tribulations.
You talk about backpacking the universe. I like that. I like that. There's
we're on our planet and we're moving through the universe, and whether I'm just traveling on this rock floating through space, I'm still backpacking through the universe.
Right.
I've seen places from freight trains that hardly anybody gets to see except for that conductor, and I've met some of the greatest people out of traveling like this. Being kind of the gutter punk side, with the mohawk, and I didn't get any face tattoos or bad tattoos at the time, like a lot of my friends wanted me to, because it's like, well, I'm gonna have to get a job someday. So
okay.
It's more acceptable nowadays than it was, 20 years ago. And I was in New Orleans when that all changed. And New Orleans was a great place for that. I had a tall mohawk. I looked like a mime that was on LSD, because it was the gutter punk look with the black and white makeup on my face, tall mohawk. Random strangers would come up to me and take my picture. Hey, take a picture with
you're an
us,
icon.
It was typical New Orleans type street stuff.
Okay.
And I watched the the Olympic torch on its way to Atlanta. It was going down Decatur Avenue, and I was in front of Jackson Square, standing in front of Caldy's coffee shop. And one of my friends and a carload of fresh off the boat Russians pulled up in this. It was like an old Caprice, like an old Chevy Caprice 4-door. It was painted navy blue with house paint with red tribal graffiti done all over it. I said, "Get in, we're going to a hippie gathering." All right. So I jump in this car and spend a week with these people in Columbus, Missouri. And unfortunately, I can't remember their names. It's been over 20 years. Damn it. But I had a great time up there. And then out of the group of us that went to Columbia, Missouri, 3 of us went down to the gathering. And it was in the middle of the forest outside of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. It was Mark Twain National Forest. And I've seen a lot of the countryside at this point, but I'd never seen anything as pretty as this place until then. And being able to, I've driven through areas like this, but I never got to like get out of the car and go explore and feel the nature around me. And being around so many welcoming people, whether it were hippies or all kinds of walks of life. I met people from all over the world at this gathering, and it changed me. The LSD changed me a lot too, but the feel, the vibe, it was like a warm hug from grandma, as I like to say.
Wonderful.
You get to feel that experience, a whole different culture of humanity, and it turned me into a hippie for a long time. I let my hair grow out. I didn't grow it long at that point. I didn't grow my hair long until I was in my 40s. But I wanted to be more, and it consumed me as being in touch with more in touch with nature and in touch with getting your hands dirty and staying grounded, staying charged with the earth at the same time, and you see a good sense of community. Everybody would work together. There's a big kitchen at a rainbow gathering, an outdoor kitchen where people it's all vegan food unless you bring your own meat, because vegan food's cheap. So everybody would pitch in, and a couple of people would go to the store and buy a couple $1,000s worth of beans and rice and stuff like that, and everybody would eat. Everybody would eat and have a good time. And it was a sense of community where everybody seemed to work together and have a good time. I didn't see any aggression. Of course, no alcohol was allowed. Everything else was, everything else was. But all the alcohol was kept at what they called A camp, and that's where all the buses were. And you'd see a group of Vietnam veterans up there. If you wanted to drink beer, you had to go drink beer with those guys and put up with their BS, which was cool because they got some neat stories to tell, and they've seen a part of humanity that nobody wants to see,
Well said.
But they were a bunch of good guys too,
I'm glad that you got there to this communal experience that you're describing, because that's what I'm seeing as you're coming into this expression. Hoimaha has this podcast, BleuMondaze.
BleuMondaze.
Doing a lot of work out there at Rennesville, at the Oklahoma Blues Hall of Fame, in connection with Selby Minner.
Yes.
Out there, it seems to be. Yes, she invites people. She facilitates. It seems like she's a teacher. She's helping people grow musically, getting people up on stage, getting people opportunities. I saw Marijuana Mike out there growing musically. I got to see Harold Aldridge again last night. Homer Johnson, right?
Yep.
Yes, and that guy just blesses my heart. Bronco, got to play with Bronco. Johnny last night. Anyway, there is this sense of community going on there. So it's like
absolutely.
a continuation of this discovery that she made out of the Gutter Street punk thing in New Orleans, going to a rainbow gathering. You were talking about just kind of being transformed by an expression of community. and that's kind of that's what I see you doing right now. Is you're continuing that tradition.
That's
Yes?
what I'm trying for. A lot of it because places like the Gathering when I've been to gatherings like that, all the BS is left at the gates. People are there to have a good time. Hi, baby. And I see this when I go to the music jam, when I go to the Blues Hall of Fame on Sundays and play with people. Everybody leaves their whatever personal BS or whatever at the gate. Everybody is there to have a good time and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the music and to hang out and spread love, man. It's a beautiful thing. The world doesn't see enough of that anymore.
Music is one of these things. It's like we have to show up in great strength to do it. We have to kind of bring that persona, bring that ego in some sense. We have to get up on stage. We have to show up strong, and also show up with great humility. We were talking about strength and compassion, or having this capacity to really be open. Because if you're going to be open in this world, you've also got to be really, really tough.
And
right.
really humble too.
Here with Hoimaha again, and he was just telling me this really wonderful story about his uncle and this connection that they made. It's a story of musical progression. Could you retell that for me?
Yeah. I play music, a lot of it because of my Uncle Tom, Mr. Tom Blackburn. He has inspired me since I was a young child. He was the rock and roller of our family. He plays all different styles of music. He's a fantastic guitar player and upright bass player as well. He tried to teach me music when I was a young child, and it was music that was before my knowledge as an early musician, things I wasn't able to play at that time. You know, if I would have listened to him and learned my scales and everything like I should have, I probably could have banged it out a little bit sooner than 20 years later. Right. Just one day it all clicked. It was like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, now then it made sense. And hearing that from him, of approval of being able to play music like that now and not being able to play then, and now we can sit around and we can play music together. Yes. And we can enjoy that emotional connection with music together, due to us being able to both play the same styles of music now, and being able to feel that warmth of experiencing that with each other. You know, it was always great as a child going out and hearing him play, you know, and now being able to play music together, it changes everything. And as always, I'm still learning every day I can. And every time he tells me something, whether it's him or the guys down at the club, you know, I never look at criticism as negative, but always as, I can learn from this. Let's make these changes, and it always sounds better. So.
Right. Part of my work as I'm making my videos is I'm always trying to acknowledge my teachers, those great teachers. And that's what I hear you doing in this, is like we have these people who invested in our lives musically or in some other way, and we can't quite get it. Sometimes people are functioning on such a high level that we can't even quite relate to what they're trying to give us. We don't even we have to create context to even just to assimilate the fundamentals that they're trying to give us. And I think this just kind of represents sometimes how we meet people in the world. You know, like we're all part of this great work, and we show up sometimes on different levels. And how we share ourselves is so important. You're also talking about kind of receiving, in a sense, kind of like the father's blessing or the uncle's blessing. Like there's somebody that has something to pass down, and then you go on this path. Like it wasn't the path that your uncle was able to give you. You know, he showed you the shapes. You weren't quite able to practice, but you went on this longer journey, like backpacking through the universe, and somehow what your uncle was trying to show you shows up in your life as you kind of realize the importance of that. And over the years, so it's a big part of the story is how do we receive that blessing in ourselves, and how do we discover that blessing for ourselves? Because ultimately, I mean, the blessing has to come from in here,
Right.
as we know. Ultimately, it's not a father from the outside that can give it to us, and we discover that. I'm hearing that in your story. Is that correct?
Yeah, he doesn't give out compliments. He's
Yeah.
not that type
Right,
of guy.
right.
You know, you're gonna earn it. You know,
Right,
you're gonna
right.
earn it.
Yes, you do, don't you?
He showed me the tools I will need. It took me years of travel through the universe to
Right.
find these tools and understand, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I know how to use those tools,
Right.
and now I can put them to a practical application.
Yes.
And he showed that to me at a young age, and I'm glad he showed that to me. It took many years, like I said, for me to understand it, but once I did, so thankful for it. You know?
Right, right.
Thank you, Tom. I love you, brother.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm here in, yes, that's a great story. I'm here in Stigler, Oklahoma with Hoimaha, and tonight we've got this BleuMondaze podcast.
BleuMondaze podcast on BleuMondaze. It's BleuMondaze, and that will be 7:30 p.m. Mr. Travis Travelin' Trav here will be on our stage at 7:30 p.m. Be sure and tune in. We'd love to see you. Going to get his music out and get his word out, and we'll sit down and have a story and have some good music for you to enjoy.
Thanks, Hoimaha, for the invitation.
Thank you for coming out, Travis.
Awesome.